Let us conduct a criterion response pabasa recommerce rakanyorwa this student. Saka kuti criterion response zvakangofanana nekuti corrections kana kuti suggested solutions, however you want to take it. So this was a commerce paper, commerce test 1, and let us start with question number 1. Problem yakaitika pa question number 1. Question yacho yaiti distinguish between direct production and indirect production. So when I was marking this work, this question actually had 10 marks, but the student got 2 marks. The reason for 2 marks is not because vanga vasingazive zvekunyora, but it's actually owed to presentation. Saka pakauya ma-questions anenge achiti distinguish between, you have to communicate to the marker kuti you are actually sort of weighing, you are comparing between direct production and indirect production. There is no need yekunyora about advantages and disadvantages of direct production kana kuti advantages and disadvantages of indirect production. That is answering your own question. You don't have to set your own question, you have to answer the question you are given. So my advice would be there are 2 ways or more of answering this question, one of which would be using paragraphs. But the method I want to encourage is using a table. So question ikauya ichiti distinguish between, you put a table, then it has to be a simple table just like this. Kuside kuno kumonyora direct production, kuside kumonyora indirect production. And then since in a 10 marks you have to make sure kuti kuno kumunema points ari 5 and more. Saka mukanyora 5 points, maybe mukawedzera 6 kuti muve an option yekutora all the marks. Then in most cases the first difference was kuita distinguish, kuita note the differences. So the first difference is usually due to the definition. So if you know the definition of direct production, you can just write it simply like production for own consumption, like this. Then manje for indirect production, mema kutichi production for resale, cannot production for selling, and maybe for mogonot for commercial use. Nogononyora zvakawanda. Saka pakadai so manje munyazokuona kuti there is a difference iripo between zvatanyora for direct production nezvatanyora for indirect production. You are comparing, you are distinguishing. Maona manje. Then from my definitions, makuchitanga kutaura zvinhu technical, maybe you come to my advantages and disadvantages. Like if we take this, it saves on labor costs. Panapa saves on labor costs. Kuno kumenge makutishi requires more labor for large scale production. Mapaona? That's a difference now. Kuti chimwe chinoda less labor, chimwe chinoda more labor. Then mukataura kunoko muchiti chi reduces wastage of resources. Kunoko mogona kutaura muchiti chi requires more resources, hence high chance for wastage. Mapaona, you are comparing. Kuno kumogona kutaura muchiti less pollution, then kuno kumema kutichi more pollution from production. Saka these are just examples I'm giving. You already know them. You take my advantages and my disadvantages, then you sort of you compare them. Chakati chiri kuitika ku direct production hachisi kuitika ku indirect production. That's how you present this. Or you can actually do this mchishandisa maparagraphs kureva kuti munenge makutichi direct production makunyora like madefinitions, because definition ndo inotangwa kana mchiansa question yekuita distinguish or question inenge ichitaura kuti note the difference, like what we have on number 4. Saka direct production, then you write panapa. Mova munogona kuti while list kana kuti munogona kuti mapedza kunyora apa, then pa next line motichi indirect production, then monyora futi, then you skip a line monyora a second difference yenyu panapa. Monyora for direct, for indirect you skip a line chingodaro. So that's also another way of doing it. Otherwise zvamaita apa does not amount to 2 marks. So that was your mistake pa 1A. Then pa 1B manch you did good, like matipa the definition of primary production, mukatipa the definition of secondary production. Chamangoresva panje kuti hamuna kuzotipa amwe ma differences. So kana kuti hamuna kuzoita distinguish further, of which manga mchigonoshandisa table or kushandisa maparagraphs like this, but just make sure kuti mapoints enyu they are 5 or more, because you have to assume kuti 2 marks per point, because each point iri kubata both sides of the story, both direct and indirect production. So this was your mistake for 1B. Then when we go to number 2A, you did very well. That's why I want to go for 15. Your only problem was you didn't give examples, especially for primary production and secondary production. Had you given examples for primary production after the definition and secondary production, you could have gotten all your marks, because iyanga iri question of explaining the 3 stages of production. Mukatarisa for tertiary production you gave examples exhaustively, but you didn't give examples, so that's where the 3 marks were lost. Then when we go to part B, what is the difference between consumer and producer goods? Very good. Matipa a correct definition, mukatipa all the necessary examples, did the same for the other part of the question. Yangai chidajin producer goods, did the same, correct definition and examples. That's why mawana all the marks. What is production? A correct definition throughout. Then for your number 4, did well also, except for this part of repeating the question. Question here to give examples. Giving examples, state the difference between needs and wants. So mafangu tipama difference. Mamskafangu kuti the difference between needs and wants is that no. That's repeating the question. So no cost on your time. Saka you just list down the examples citing the difference. Chete. Mafangu tanga mchiti needs are necessities for life. Things we cannot live without, example, clothes, education, food. Just like that. Not repeating the question. Chakangokosha kunota the number of the question, kuti number 4. You shouldn't go wrong there. Then lastly, yokupedzisira, list all the 6 elements of the aids of trade. You did all of them. Twabike abuda, transport, warehousing, advertising, banking, insurance, communication, as it is. So that's why you got all the marks. Saka you did fairly well for your first test. Problem ingoriponde kuti hamna kuansa number 1 zvakanaka. That's where you lost the bulk of your marks. But mukatarisa all the other numbers, you answered them correctly. So what I would want you to do is I want you to repeat number 1. That's your assignment. Repeat number 1 and send it so that we see if you have improved on how you present your question, your answer. when the question is about distinguishing between. Thank you.